I remember being interviewed, like berated with sports questions by like 7 or 8 men. And one of them was a Michigan grad. And they hired, I think, 5 interns out of probably thousands. And I think I got that job really because I had a Michigan guy, behind me, pulling for me. We talk about those connections. I went into the head of our company and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to interview for it. And he said, yeah, I know you know sports and I know you love sports, but not like the guys do. And I was like, did you just see that? And that was kind of the first wake-up call of, okay, I am a woman in a male-dominated industry.
So do you have a most memorable interview that you've done? If there was one you could relive, what would it be? Welcome back to Hail to Her, guys. I'm Haley Polk, and today I'm here with a very special guest at the Michigan Sports Business Conference, Tracy Wolfson. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've been wanting to come on your show for so long. I'm glad it worked out.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited. It's no doubt that you're a Michigan fan, and you've been so successful afterward, but I want to ask questions about your career here and kind of what led you to what you're doing now. So Michigan is a school without we have communications, but we don't have a broadcasting degree. So what about Michigan set you up for success after school and in reporting?
Yeah, when I was in school, we didn't have that either. I think our journalism department closed while I was there. And I did take a few editing classes, if I remember, very early on. But really what set me up, knowing that I wanted to get into sports, was certainly being part of the communications department. And then I would go to the communications department, to the head, and I would ask them for opportunities or what kind of jobs and internships. And on the wall was an internship one year going into my senior year for HBO Sports. And that really opened the door for me because I didn't really do much in terms of the sports space or in terms of media while I was at school because I didn't really know. I didn't know about it. So that really opened up the door for me to get involved in that area. And I do believe that I got that internship. I remember being interviewed, like berated with sports questions by like 7 or 8 men. And one of them was a Michigan grad. And they hired, I think, 5 interns out of probably thousands. And I think I got that job really because I had a Michigan guy, behind me, pulling for me. We talk about those connections. And that opened the door for me because once I was there, I made so many contacts. And a lot of those contacts would come to Michigan and do games. And they would produce for ABC and CBS. And I was a runner. I would get water and coffee and answer phones in the trucks and hang banners all over and just was able to witness how a sports broadcast was put on. And I fell in love. And that was really what opened the door for me while I was here at Michigan.
So what kind of steps did you take after you graduated that were the first doors to open to get into the broadcasting world?
Yeah, so while I wanted to be a reporter, I had no experience. I had no tape. I never really did it. I maybe did it in my room. I practiced in my room. I practiced in front of a mirror. I would watch games. I knew the sports. I was knowledgeable, but I didn't have anything tangible. So I really went the route of research for CBS. I got an opportunity because of those contacts to work at CBS as a researcher. And I spent a year there and it was great. I was in New York City and I was doing research for tons of events, football, basketball, Olympics, you name it, and got to work a lot of events. And then it's an interesting story. I wound up trying to basically be promoted to the next level, which is called a broadcast associate. That's kind of like if you want to be a producer or director, that's the ladder you take. I went into my producer. I went into the head of our company and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to interview for it. And he said, yeah, I know you know sports and I know you love sports, but not like the guys do. And I was like, did you just see that? And that was kind of the first wake-up call of, okay, I am a woman in a male-dominated industry. And so I took that and I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. This is not even what I want to do. I really want to be, in front of the camera. So I got a job actually as an agent. I saw another side of the business of basically what you need to sound like and look like and how to put a tape together and where to send it to. And I did that. And then I worked for a TV station as a producer, and then I made a fake tape. And I sent my fake tape all over the country. Nothing ever aired, and I got my first job in Trenton, New Jersey. And while that's a crazy roundabout path that you don't have to take now, that's kind of all those experiences have made me the reporter I am today.
Yeah. And so taking those steps, I mean, obviously is something that helps shape your skills. And what do you think set you up for success and separated yourself from the other broadcasters, whether they be men or women?
I think, first of all, the path I took definitely hardened me.
Yeah.
It allowed me to learn a lot. I can visually see a different side because I did work in production for a while. I think the biggest thing when I step back is my joy for what I do. I really do believe that. And I think it shows on camera. And I think that's really important because you're in these moments and you want to match those moments. I don't want to just stick a microphone in their face with, kind of that, monotone emotion. I want to match that. I want to bring the fans in. I want them to feel like they're part of it. And I also want, you're going to get better responses if the person you're interviewing can understand that you're in it with them. And I think I've just become myself. And I do have joy and passion, and you see it in my love for Michigan and every time I talk about sports. And I think that does reflect on television. At least I hope it does. That's something I pride myself on and something I think, maybe differentiates me. And it's really all about being yourself out there.
And so not just, what you've done so far, but you've covered sports like rodeo and a number of different things that have set yourself up. So how did that translate to what you're doing now with basketball and football?
Yeah, I did everything. Rodeo, never rode a horse, auto racing, never changed tires in my life, skiing, swimming, track and field, tennis, figure skating, you name it. I've probably done everything under sumo wrestling. Yep. I've done everything. But that goes back to the researcher in me. I absolutely love finding the stories and learning. I always said I really enjoyed preparing for tests, not necessarily taking the test, but I liked organizing everything and going through it. And I still, to this day, get excited on a Monday when I'm done with one game and I have another one to look forward to. And that's what I love about my job, because you're always trying to uncover a story or even the X's and O's, like what's a different angle. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing when you're on the field, you're trying to find the stories that the guys or girls in the booth can't get. And so you're the eyes and the ears down there. You're like this investigative reporter. And it doesn't matter what you're covering, whether it is rodeo or auto racing, you're still trying to do that same thing. So that just prepared me for, the skills you need covering football and basketball. It's really the same thing. You're just talking a different sport.
So when it comes to your interviews, whether you're interviewing Patrick Mahomes after a game winner or, someone with not so good of a performance or a bad performance for the team collectively, how do you go about drastic changes in types of interviews that you do?
We were just talking about this actually last night at dinner because, yes, it's all great when you're interviewing, the champion of the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. When they just won a game, and I will be with Patrick Mahomes this weekend. But
Love it.
Not name dropping or anything. No, I'm just kidding. But, those interviews are great. You match the moment, you ask them about the wins. It's really the most difficult is either being in a losing locker room, which I don't go into losing locker rooms anymore because that's not my role, but a lot of beat reporters have to do that. Being in a losing locker room or at the Final Four and during March Madness, my job after I do the winning interview is to run back there and get the losing interview. And that, to try and change your tone, is really difficult. And what I've learned is just let them speak. It's not about you. It's not about how much you know and your knowledge. They're in a very vulnerable situation right now. Just let them talk and let them give the emotion. And yeah, there's always those questions you could ask. What did you just say to your team in the locker room? You're going to get something good. And while it sounds like a routine question, don't reinvent the wheel. It's like I said, it's not about you. It's really about that moment and also appreciating that they're giving you the opportunity to talk after a disappointing loss like that. And the other thing is, usually in those situations, there was kind of a mistake that happened. And it's when are you going to bring that up?
Okay.
And I've learned watching from other reporters, because I still to this day learn every day watching other reporters, that when you bring that pivotal moment up is really important because they are very vulnerable at that time. So if all of a sudden you say to them, well, why didn't you call the timeout at the end there? That's your first question. They're going to go off.
Shut
They're
down,
not going to be happy. They're going to shut down. And it's going to be very uncomfortable. So I always try and say, allow them to answer that. What happened down the stretch? Let the coach say, well, we probably should have called a timeout. And if not, and you know you have to ask it, because you also don't want to walk away and not ask the question you're supposed to ask, is you say to them, well, do you think you should have called a timeout? Or did you think about calling a timeout? Again, let them speak. Don't tell them what they did wrong. And so I've learned that over the years by watching a lot of other reporters. And I've been in those situations too, of how to handle them. And it's very different than doing a winning interview.
So do you have a most memorable interview that you've done? If there was one you could relive, what would it be?
Yeah, it had to be my Super Bowl interview with Peyton Manning, Super Bowl 50. And first of all, I was covering a Super Bowl for my first time. And that was a huge moment for me. And second of all, I absolutely loved Peyton. He was great to be around. I'd known him for a long time. I had a good relationship with him. So to see him win a Super Bowl in Denver was huge. And I remember we weren't going to do an interview. It's actually a funny story. Our producer was like, I don't know, we'll see. I'm like, we're not going to do an interview because he was going to go on the podium. So they were going to just let that interview be the interview. I'm like, really? Like getting that emotion? So by the way, the game ends. Everyone surrounds him. And I'm walking away and they're like, oh, you know what? If you can get the interview, get it. And I'm like, wait. So then I had to like push my way through. But the relationship, and it goes back to relationships you have with these teams, but the PR director at the time said, wait, and I saw, you could see it in the copies, Tracy's going to come get you. Let's just hold on for a second. So I went in, I swoop in, asked the question, and he talks about, he was going to retire after that year. So that was a big moment. Like, when do you ask that question and how do you formulate it? How do you not, no one knew if that was going to be his last game or not, but we had an idea. So how do you formulate that question? So the way I asked it was something about memories, looking around, could this be it or something? And he goes, I'm going to go drink my Budweiser and enjoy it for right now. But
that's so funny.
It was so genuine. And it was really a huge moment for me and certainly for him because it was his final game. So to be part of that was definitely and it still is to this day, my favorite memorable moment.
So when you look back on your career as a whole, when was the moment where you were like, I've made it as a broadcaster. I'm fulfilling the dreams that I had when I decided I wanted to do this in college?
It was that moment. It definitely was because, when you grow up, you're not like, I want to cover a Super Bowl. I mean, you are, but you're not. You just want to get in on the air. But as you're, climbing that ladder, that's the ultimate goal, especially if you're a football fan, if you're in that business. It's, look, I've been very fortunate to cover tons of Final Fours and national championship basketball games, which I absolutely love. I've covered the U.S. Open, which I was a tennis player, so that was a big moment for me. Never got a chance to do an Olympics, only as I was a runner, a tape librarian. So that's on the bucket list a little bit. But to cover a Super Bowl, to me, I looked around and I still to this day take a moment every time. Not only when I'm doing a game, I do it during the anthem, but I also do it when I cover Super Bowls. And I take a moment and I look around and I said, oh my God, here you are. Like, look at how far you've come. Enjoy it, embrace it, be thankful for where you are because it's a long road and not everyone gets there. So I think when, that was my first time covering that Super Bowl, I think I was like, okay, wow, I've actually made it.
That's really cool to hear. I think a lot of this podcast is about inspiring the next generation of female athletes or women in sport. And is there anything coming from someone like yourself who's been so successful that you can say would help women set themselves apart, or advice that you would give to your younger self to set yourself up for success?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, I would get as much experience while you're in school as possible. Like I said, I kind of wish I did more of that. I don't know if my path would have changed, and I don't think I would have wanted it to change. But it would have made it a lot easier. Get as much experience, as much content as you can right now. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's, working for one of the TV stations, doing a podcast, going out to the stadium and just interviewing people when they're done with the game. Just get content, get experience, get reps as much as you can. I think number two, take advantage of the largest alumni base in the country. We're here at Michigan. There is someone in every business. Make those contacts, keep those contacts, use those contacts. And then finally, be versatile. Be willing to do anything. You're not going to wind up on the NFL right away. It's okay to do rodeo and swimming and skiing or sumo wrestling or whatever, working for, a newspaper, online newspaper, or working for Google or Amazon. There's so many opportunities. Your path will get there. And I loved what Grant Hill said today. It was about patience. Be patient, right? And it's okay. Be versatile, be patient, be willing to do a lot of the little things before you can get to the top. And actually, one more is be a great teammate. And I say it to everyone, I say, don't be a diva. That kind of is my line. And I had to use it once to someone who asked me for advice, who, by the way, is killing it right now. And it's just about, if you're a good teammate, if people enjoy working with you, if you respect the others you work around, you will have longevity in this business because everyone will go to bat for you over and over. And I think that's we see the most successful teams out there have great teammates all working together. And I think being part of a team and being a great teammate is so important in success of life.
Well, thank you so much. This has been, so fun for me to be a part of. And you're someone that I look up to not only because you're a Michigan alum and you love the school like myself, but because you've been so successful and you've used all the tools and done the right things. And I'm just honored that you wanted to be on the show here. So I really appreciate it.
I'm honored because I remember kind of a few years back when I first met you, and this is where you wanted to go. And of course, we had the lacrosse conversation, which was a passion of mine. But I'm just really proud of you. And keep up the great work. And like I said, I'm always here if you need me.
You're the best. Thank you.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.